Right. Hi, everyone. A very good morning, afternoon, or good night, wherever you're at in the world from sunny Singapore. My name is Jean, and I'm the co founder of Superhero Me. And for the next half an hour, I'll be sharing a little bit about how we really work to use the arts to include children with and without disabilities in the space. So, for some background, that's us. You see this little boy in a costume. His name is Elvis. And when he was 6, his goal was really to become Eagle Boy. And when you learn about Superhero Me's work, a lot of what we do is to really use the creative arts to do what we call social mixing. In Singapore, really mixing children from different communities, with and without disabilities, low income families, to really mix and get to know each other through the inclusive arts. We decided that as a ground up movement, most of us weren't teachers, we were creatives. We really had to define what inclusion meant in our space. We didn't run a school, none of us were full time on the project, and we were really a very group of passionate people. Just really, really wanting to and progress inclusion in Singapore. So for us, the key factor here is to really have clear goals and ways on how children can participate in an activity. How do they achieve a sense of belonging, which is really, really important to us, and to eventually really, really have friends that are out of their school, that are from a different social background, different social circles. That was very important. To sum up our work in 3 areas, first of all, we want to realize the potential of children with added needs, special needs, added needs, disabilities, by bringing in artists and creatives to show them what they're able to do. What they're capable of, and to allow them to interact with kids from very different circumstances. Secondly, we work a lot in capability building, and that's really all about training, designing inclusive programs, really spreading the knowledge of how we facilitate inclusion. Just for some context, in Singapore, a lot of children with special needs grow up in a separate school system called the special education school system. And they could really live their whole childhood and their young adult life not having a typical or normal friend. And that's pretty worrying because when you talk about social isolation, all these things are very, very real. So this brings me to the third area of our work, really wanting to impact the attitudes of Singaporeans, of regular families towards children with special needs. And to do that, we actually create loads of content, partnerships with different organizations to really use the idea of videos, photos, storytelling, social media to let people really get to know and humanize the cause of disability inclusion. So before I move on to share more about our inclusive approach, I'm going to show you a very short clip about the fun that's all about Superhero Me's work. That's right. Really, really love, that whole idea of everyone coming together in a very energetic setting. And that brings me really to the first part of my sharing. How do we actually do inclusion? And I think, first of all, when you think about inclusion, it goes back to how do you see, right? Do you look at a child with disability as somebody who needs fixing, someone who needs a cure? And that's the old school medical model that we talk about, right? Always looking at the impairment. How can we help? How can we cure? Whereas how we really are thinking about our work is really based on the social model of disability, wanting everyone to know that it's you and my responsibility to actually think about people who are different from us. That instead of the problem being the boy in the wheelchair, why not change the stairs to a ramp? Why not create an environment that's friendly towards autistic people, elderly, everybody, right? Everyone benefits. And that really is the basis of how we design our programs at Superhero Me. As you know, with disability, you have the visible types of disabilities that are, very often associated with folks with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, people who are wheelchair users. But on the other hand, we do experience a growing number of kids with invisible disabilities like autism, where very often you don't know that they have a disability unless they act out, they have a meltdown, they might be stimming or so-called behaving weirdly. And that really means that we have to be more sensitive and attuned, right, to different types of disability. Very often when we think about inclusion, it's very important to have a think about your own perspective. Are you saying, no, 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 let's give them all the same box? Whether they are wheelchair user, they're short or they're tall, they all deserve a box each to watch the soccer match. Or are you coming from the other extreme where, why do we even have a fence why do we even have a wall that blocks the soccer game? Let's tear the wall down and build a fence. Over at Singapore, we're kind of in between the equality and equity perspective. Our schools here do their best really to try and give the children what they need in order to succeed in the classroom. So if you need, if you need support in terms of vision, yes, you get your glasses. If you are a wheelchair user, you get your RAMs. And that really is an interesting, good starting point to allow people from all walks of life to start thinking about how inclusion could look like in their environment. Simply put, inclusion is really more than, yeah, I support, yeah, it feels good. You have to take action. It is inconvenient, it is more work, it is a different kind of work, but it really, really benefits everyone in the room because we are really all different in many big or little ways. Another word here is really about feeling valued and welcome. And I think with us, when we interact with children from all walks of life, the idea of making sure that they leave from Superhero Me feeling like they were accepted, that they had fun, is something that's really important to us. We work predominantly on this approach called the inclusive arts approach. It's a practice that we have been working as artists, creatives, producers, facilitators, all aligned and united by the whole idea here that when we put these kids in an environment to do art together, it's definitely anything but tokenistic. The arts really is an important bridge really to allow people with disabilities and without to collaborate, to get to know how to work together. And more importantly here, what we're pushing for is really high quality art that has a certain social advocacy message or lens. So you can go check this out a bit more. I think it's a growing practice around the world that really, really deserves more attention simply because it can be applied anywhere, especially in schools. What you see here are some of the basic principles of the inclusive arts. I won't go through them, but some of these words seem very common sense, right? Trust, self-reflection, space and time. But how do they actually look like in a project? So let me show you some examples. This little boy that you see on the right here, Jiyu, he was 6 when he embarked on this project. Jiyu has autism and can't stop talking about animals, can't stop drawing animals. So we paired him with another artist called Wan Xiang that mentored him, and together they produced a zine pack called Why Do Hunters Hunt Animals When They Can Hunt for Gold? And this project itself, we started and ended with no agenda in mind. How beautiful, right? Really wanting both of them to learn how to trust each other, have that time to explore Singapore, explore the work, explore different ideas of how to present the project. And it became a really wonderful way for this 6-year-old boy to have a clear perspective of who he is, right? Of how it's like growing up with autism and expressing yourself through this whole series of projects. And I think when you see the work together, it reflects Jiri's very interesting sense of humor, which we love. And, even up till today, he's always asking these questions. Like, we're in the museum and he says, why can't we use flesh? The animals are already dead. So, yeah, why, right? Why can't we use flesh? And when we talk about the different disability types, Fong Yi, the artist on the left, really practices in art tech, wanting to be able to use tech to allow kids with communication difficulties who use alternate forms of communication to think about expressing themselves in ways that others might not commonly understand. So in Singapore, a lot of technology that these kids use are based on the iPad. And when you look at children like Alia here, who's on the top left, she's basically drawing with her eyes using an eye gazing software because she can't hold a pencil to draw. So who's to say that if you can't pick up a pen, you can't draw, right? And I think very simple questions like that actually pushed us to think very deeply about how we could use technology to elevate the way we think about accessibility, the way we allow children with more severe disabilities to still participate in the form of art making and creativity. It was really, really fun. The third example that I'm going to share is called Everything is Okay with Friends. Um, Last year, we started working with Apple and held a series of workshops at the Apple Store in conjunction with Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And the cool thing was, of course, when you talk about the arts in Singapore, there is a national push to go towards things like the iPad, getting kids to use the Apple Pencil, but these things were pretty foreign to children with disabilities. We decided to pair them together with artists, like you see Hong Shin here, working with twins Riz and Kais, to put together projects like animation, exploring software to really look at how the apps could allow children a different way of expressing themselves. So I'm just going to play a very short video of the animation piece that these three guys created so you can learn more.
Everything is okay with friends. I'm Mohawk. Happy. Axel. Aye. Trucker. One fine day at Mount Beach, I'm Mohawk, Appy and Axel are playing video games. Aye, the evil snail, has heard about Appy's powers. She and Trucker make their way to Mount Beach. Aye arrives at Mount Beach and she offers Appy crunchy, delicious-looking grass that has poison. Aya and Trucker kidnaps Appy and escapes.
Appy, it's your turn. Where are you, Appy? We are gonna save you, Appy.
Iron Mohawk and Axel quickly give chase. Trucker can't move after the accident. Iron Mohawk and Axel decide to tow Iron and Trucker back for repairs. Back at Mount Beach, Appy used his super sticky slime to fix Trucker's tires.
Everything is okay with friends.
Yeah, that was pretty fun, right? So guess what? So actually behind, what you don't see is really the process of how these guys actually put together an animation clip. So you might have noticed a lot of funny sounds like and even burping or breathing sort of sounds. Those were actually done by Risk, who's the twin with cerebral palsy. So Riz is nonverbal and uses his iPad and picture book to communicate. And his brother Kais is actually the boy on the top right, narrating the entire story. And the most beautiful thing about this project was that it was a whole family affair. Since young, the twins always work with their mom Hidayah, just learning about how to communicate with each other. And Kais has been a big advocate for his brother amongst friends and family. This project was a wonderful way where they got to learn about storytelling from Hong Shin, who is an author and illustrator, learning about the concept of storytelling, story arcs, using Lego blocks, dough to really create characters that they then molded using air-dried clay. And I think finally, when they worked on creating that storyline and filming the animation, it was Risk who actually used his jelly bean button to hit and take photos of the pictures. So if you can see here in the video on the right, that's him actually hitting that what we call the jelly bean. So he was responsible to really produce and look at how how he could contribute in a very, very meaningful way. And I think the main idea here is that we really, really need to think of creative ways where our kids can participate. If you give everybody a piece of paper and a pencil, that's all they'll give you, right? A line drawing. But if the input is different, the stimulation is different, chances of getting very varied, high quality outputs will be quite different as well. So the last story that I like to share is really about Ida. So Ida really is a wonderful artist. She's known as Yellow Marshmallow. She worked with Alia, who's a student at Rainbow Center, age 12, wonderful with her assistive communication devices to really create a series of patterns under this project called Super Shape, Super Style. And these guys, when they worked on it, they had so many screens in the room, one to communicate, one to do the patterns, and one to Google images to look for reference pictures. And when you think about the idea of accessibility, what does it actually look like? So as an artist, Ida had to make sure that before she went into every session with Alia, she would actually create options for her to be able to exercise choice and empowerment, really allowing Alia to associate words with visuals to prompt her to develop perspectives on why is it funny, which is funny, and think about how do you actually allow the child to develop a stronger sense of motivation and ownership on the project. So I think that was a really, really wonderful process for us to be part of.
Family.
So you also
funny.
See here that
This one's happy.
this is how they
funny.
communicate.
Or is this funny? Or is this happy? And this is funny. Which one is funny? Which one is happy? Which one you like? Or both? You like this one? Family. Why is it funny, this one?
So I think you will see how, when you see the artist, Ida here working with the child, she doesn't go at it like a teacher or a typical student, but it's more of bantering with a friend. And I think sometimes that's really important that we are always not there to help them, but we see each other as really equal collaborators in the project. Yeah, so the wonderful thing about what happened after this project was that both the artist and child continued to email each other and keep in touch. And they would email each other things like drawing games, that's Elsa on the right there, work that came out from the project that continues to exist. And I think it's really wonderful that such relationships develop from a project. I will now show you a short video of how they work together.
I'm Ida and I'm an illustrator and also an art director. For Alia, in her school project, she's working on creating a series of masks. So for Grow, we are creating the patterns that are printed on the masks. And the task was to use the iPad to create the designs, but not in the traditional way, not with the Apple Pencil because of her limited movement, she can't really hold a pencil or move her fingers the way we normally would on an iPad. So that was the challenge, and what we did was to use shapes to create pictures. Green. Blue. So with a square plus a circle, you can create a new shape. And using that kind of formula, I taught her how to create her own expressions, whether it's like patterns or shapes or even pictures that she likes. Because of the limitations in terms of communication, we need a lot of visual aids, need a lot of pictures and slides. I designed some slides to guide the sessions. Yeah, there were a lot of screens around, one for drawing, one for talking, and one for just like Googling pictures and all that.
Finish.
Where's the body? So I have two special needs sisters, and I work with them a lot, like in creating art and all that. Like giving people like Alia the tools to express themselves is very empowering also. I would imagine that she doesn't have a lot of opportunities to voice her opinions beyond like what's the vocabulary words that are on her iPad app or beyond the questions that we ask her. So it's very interesting and inspiring to be able to see that person, that who she is, her voice, pure like in terms of drawing or even the way she labels her pictures. That's where we see the creative bit of her, and I really like that and I think that is worth building upon or even amplifying. Who's this?
Anna.
Does it look like Anna?
Yeah.
You like it? My work has a lot of playfulness. I tend to like pick up inspiration from like mundane everyday observations. Playfulness or fun is a safe space to be yourself. You're not bound by like what is understood to be logic or like the rules of what art should be. And I think that safe space is very empowering for like maybe people who have different abilities, because they're not expected to deliver art in the way like maybe the mainstream expects it. I think inclusion is like maybe just seeing the best in everyone in spite of their limitations. Just like going to the heart of the person and exploring who they are as a person, the stories they have, what they like, and what just getting to know and love them for who they are.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video. And I think when we think about inclusion, it's really, really important to start small. One project, one child, one artist really makes a difference when that one and one add up. So just really want to encourage those of you out there who are thinking about including the kids that you work with to find other people who are like-minded to join in the fun. And it really starts all from there. The next part of my segment, I will briefly touch on how is it that we have children with and without special needs in the same room, and actually look at running an activity for them. We really serve all kinds of kids. And again, I won't go into too much detail, but you have folks like Andy with autism who really are running all over the place, really looking at how you can get them to sit down, right, and participate in an activity. With kids with autism, what's really, really important are things like visual schedules, short and clear instructions, and really setting limits to how they're expected to spend their time. Again, going back to friends like Alia that you saw just now, who are nonverbal and communicate with assistive tech, what we can try really is to create opportunities for them to interact with each other, to always be patient and slow down to look at how we're able to know who they are and then use that knowledge to get them to connect with others around them. Again, sometimes the scary thing with big wheelchairs is that they often are a barrier themselves from other people getting closer to the child. And I think for us as the adults in the room is to really be aware of what are the devices and the barriers in the way. Last but not least, we also serve friends like Kalinda, friends with Down syndrome, who sometimes can come across as moody or stubborn or who take a long while to participate. With them, one-to-one facilitation is pretty important, allowing them to have the space and time to get used to us and really to look at how we can use our knowledge of them and what they like to really connect with them. This is an activity I would love for you to try at home or in your own time. If you have these scenarios and you're working with children with autism, what can you do, right? How will you communicate? How will you get them to sit down and participate in an art activity? How will you get them to dance with you? So these are just some ideas for you to consider. At the end of the day, what we really, really want you to take away is to look beneath the iceberg. What often presents itself as bad behaviors is really an accumulation of certain factors, conditions, stress that we might not know of. And it's important not to take things personally because the child is really there not to make life difficult for you. There's always a reason behind the behavior, and it's really not there's always a reason behind the behavior, and it's really not about fixing it, but creating the space for the child to cope with it and still participate in your activity. Over the years, we've developed a readiness toolkit looking at 3 areas of readiness to have children with diverse backgrounds in a room. The first is really all about program readiness, thinking about, is my program ready? Am I clear about what I want to do? Do I know my session flow? Do I know how it's going to flow? Do I even know the kids that are coming to the program, right? How will I group them so that they'll be able to work together? And for example, for us, when we do projects like the Universe of Feelings, which was a storytelling workshop, we look at things like multiple ways of engagement, routines to allow the kids to participate. If they're not going to sit down and tell you their opinion, they can scribble their opinion. And if they manage to last through the series, we let them feel like they have a sense of achievement through things like badges. And it's very, very important to be able to think creatively and not always go by a very structured classroom way of working with children with special needs. In this workshop, for example, a lot of the children that we worked with couldn't draw or color. So we had, thought of another way of really using paper cutouts for them to be able to express themselves. And it's really about curating some examples, like the ones you see on the left, so that when they come to the space, they are clear that we have high expectations of them, that they're given the outlet to have their voice and choice and to actually have fun at the activity. So what you see here is a result from the workshop, really looking at how these kids come up with themes of Singapore that were then submitted for a design competition for National Day. So from scribbles, we led them to really move towards planning different kinds of paper cutouts and shapes. Thirdly, really important, right? Is your place ready? Do you know your layout? Are there guides in the space, visual schedule? Are you clear about the energy level that you want to have? And are your materials ready for the kind of activities and the needs of the children? For us, when we look at these topics, we're really looking at what is it that we want the kids to achieve, right, as part of the session. For us, when we do programs, when we use the space, it's always about thinking, how can the space help you with the start and end? How can the space help you focus? How can the space help you to separate work time, group time, transition time, and waiting? The use of schedules is a really, really important way of keeping it simple and consistent for them as well as the adults in the room. Really considering how you can use group rules, schedules, allowing kids to understand what is expected of them in the space, and even breaking down tasks into step-by-step instructions. So I think at the end of it, it's really about giving them that support and that certainty to be able to participate in your event. Next, we look at, are our people ready? For facilitators in the room, everyone matters. Everyone's roles are important. The tone, the language that we use, a lot of our kids vibe it, whether it's positive, negative, are you there? Are you nervous? Are you excited? They can tell. And really think about using existing support in the room in the form of teachers or caregivers to be able to allow you to work with the children. For us, we love running these annual inclusive arts camps, really allowing children with and without special needs to be in a very fun setting for 3 days to work as different teams. And when you look at how we put our arts facilitators out there to support it, it's really considering who there can be the lead for the event, who supports the lead, who's there to bridge the children, who's there to buddy up the ones who need a bit more space, who's there to rove around, making sure that no one feels left out. And at the end of the day, it's really important to set up a space so that children like Shannon and Risky, who would never get to meet each other in a regular school setting, have that safe space to explore a friendship, to really get to know each other's families and to interact with each other. It's to have children like Yanzu and Ian here, who have invisible disabilities, the space to be able to express who they are without feeling judged, to be able to bond over things like a rocket launcher, which is the bottle on the right. And I think that itself sets the tone to what we want to do, right? How do we want to create a space that's safe for all children to come in and be creative and not feel judged for who they are? I would like to end off asking everybody, how are you personally ready for inclusion? I think the important thing here for us as facilitators is always to track our growth, understanding what do we want out of learning from these experiences, to learn and unlearn, right? Easier said than done, of course. But for us, inclusion is really a journey and not a destination. As a community, one can only go so far alone. But I think if we build a culture where everyone is dedicated and aligned towards practicing inclusion, you watch each other, you watch yourself. And that environment actually encourages others in the room to be more aware about their behaviors and how they respond to the kids around them. I would like to end off reminding everyone again that inclusion or the support of children with special needs is really always a work in progress. It requires a lot of thinking and reflection of who we are in relation to the children. What do we hope to achieve with our art? Because at the end of the day, it is really creating a new channel for the kids to explore, to be able to have that added social network, which will really help them as they transit through different stages of their lives. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation this afternoon. Do keep in touch. Check out Superhero Me SG on Facebook and Instagram. And you can go check out all the projects that I shared earlier. They're all on our website. And I've really enjoyed this morning session and hope to be able to share more with you in time to come. Thank you. Bye.